Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, details of Donald Trump's schedule when he visits the UK next week have been revealed, and it seems his time in London has been minimised, although officials have denied that's to avoid any contact with potential protests. From a lavish black-tie dinner with the Prime Minister to a meeting with the Queen, it looks rather like a state visit in all but name. Paul McNamara has more.
His Majesty the King awaits the arrival of the President of the United States.
Harry Truman was welcomed with a warship.
Many happy scenes mark this all-too-brief visit.
Reagan rode with the Queen, and George Bush Sr. was given the steps of Downing Street to address the nation.
We have a very, very special relationship.
Now it's time to welcome the 45th American president, and today we learned how Donald Trump will be hosted when he lands next Thursday. A military band will greet him at Blenheim Palace before a lavish black-tie dinner hosted by Theresa May. He'll stay the night at the US Ambassador's London home, then to Chequers for a working lunch with the PM, and off to Windsor Castle in the evening to meet the Queen, all before flying to Scotland, a whistle-stop tour that handily misses out Westminster and the Trump baby blimp. Protesters will fly this 20-foot inflatable above Parliament Square during the visit. Not that President Trump will see it.
No Trump! No Brexit!
Nor is he likely to see the protesters set to descend on Westminster. But for a president known for a love of grandeur...
I looked out. The field was... it looked like 1 million, 1.5 million people.
Donald Trump is not getting a state visit, despite these being given to arguably more controversial leaders like the President of China and the King of Saudi Arabia. For it to be a state visit, he'd need to be formally hosted by the Queen, invited on a carriage procession, and have a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. But given President Trump is meeting the Queen, is getting a military welcome, and is getting some sort of banquet, is this really a state visit in all but name?
A short time ago, I spoke to Drew Lickerman, spokesperson for the Republicans overseas, and Owen Jones, who's organising the anti-Trump. I began by asking Mr. Lickerman what he thought of the giant Trump baby.
It's quite embarrassing. I mean, not for Trump, it's embarrassing for the people protesting. I mean, that balloon's ridiculous, and, you know, Trump is Trump. He's going to flip that balloon totally on the, you know, this is just what Trump's looking for, something ridiculous like this balloon, just to flip it on its head. He'll make some joke out of it, like fake news. Everyone said Trump was spreading fake news, and now when you hear fake news, you think of the left-wing media. So we very well could see Trump making jokes out of this balloon. It's just quite pathetic, I think. But the protests stop Trump, keep Trump out of the UK. That in itself is a bit ridiculous. You have the UK leaving the European Union. You have these people that want to shun the US. Who do you want to work with? You want to work with China, Iran? I mean, it makes no sense at all. We have the president coming to work on...
Owen Jones, he's got a point, hasn't he? I mean, after Brexit, we're going to be on our own, we're going to need some friends, and America's a pretty important friend.
I don't think anybody, however they voted in the EU referendum, wanted us to become the puppet of Donald Trump's America. We saw where that led in the past, when we became the puppet of George W. Bush's America. Do you remember that? Tony Blair talking about the blood price that we'd have to pay. It ended with 189 British service personnel dying in Iraq.
But this is different. We're not talking about war here.
Well, no, actually, that's not true. That's one of the... There's many reasons for protesting.
But we're not talking about an actual war.
No, well, not yet. But we don't know, for example, when it comes to Iran, we've got John Bolton, who's a very an extreme advisor around George Bush, who has talked about bombing Iran in the past. What we're talking about here is this. We have somebody, it's not just about his bigotry, his racism, his misogyny, not just about the fact he's interfered in our own internal affairs, attacked the NHS, made lies up about London itself, but it's also about the fact that he is seen as the godfather, the kingpin of racists, of far-right movements everywhere.
But why not tackle those arguments head-on instead of floating a big baby in the sky? Well, I mean, that kind of cheapens the message, doesn't it? It's like...
Well, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the activists who crowdsourced that money and thousands of people contributed to get that balloon up. It is in the proud history of anti-establishment satire, and I don't think Donald Trump's in any position to talk about being, him being ridiculed on the basis of how he's ridiculed and demonised and attacked his critics and his opponents. The reality is, if he's coming to Britain, then we have our democratic right to say that we reject the bigotry, the racism, the misogyny that he personifies.
Drew Lickerman, what's your response to that?
My response to that is, I mean, I think that's just absurdly ridiculous. President Trump is here to work on hopefully a trade deal that will benefit both countries. I don't want Trump to drag the U.S. into another war in the Middle East and drag the U.K. into that. You know, I want Trump here to work on bettering the lives of Americans, bettering the lives on Brits. I don't want a one-sided trade deal that just benefits the U.S. I'd like our militaries to work better together, our tech to work better. This is what I want. I don't want to protest against that happening. I mean,
but there are bigger issues at stake, aren't there? I mean, Trump has effectively taken a rhetorical sledgehammer, you know, to the institutions, to the alliances, and indeed to many of the values that have kept the West free, safe, and prosperous since the Second World War. I mean, of course there are going to be protests against him because of that.
Well, look, I mean, I support Trump pulling out of it. If what you're referring to is pulling out of a joke of a UN Human Rights Council.
Paris climate change, Iran deal, you know, the language about NATO, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah, look, pulling out of the Iran deal, another great move on President Trump's part, a terrible deal. You know, that I think that's making the world a better and a safer place.
All right, Owen Jones, let me ask you this final question. I mean, there are many people in this country, including Labour voters, who voted for Brexit and who cherish President Trump's support of Brexit and who think that he should be, despite his views on many issues, should be given the kind of basics of common diplomatic courtesy when he comes to this country. Like him or not, we need the guy, and he actually agrees, you know, with something that many people in this country voted for. What do you say to those voters?
I think it's a gross insult to Leave voters to suggest in any way that they're sympathetic towards Donald Trump. The polling is very clear.
Quite a few of them are.
The polling is very clear that a large majority of people abhor everything that Donald Trump stands for.
Drew Lickerman, Donald Trump loves a fight. Why doesn't he just insist on coming right to the centre of London and taking on people like Owen Jones and having an argument with the protesters?
I mean, I don't think the U.S. president's here to interact with people who think it's, you know, floating a balloon around in the sky of a baby with their face on it. I mean, these people, I don't really think there's... Look, I want to talk to people, but... You know, I think some people might be losing their mind a bit when they think it's a good idea to fly around a baby in the sky. I mean, that just, I really think that just hurts their cause, and it's embarrassing. It embarrasses residents of London who, you know, aren't even that political. They just go by their daily lives, but they see babies. It's an embarrassment to everyone involved.
It's only a balloon. It's only a balloon.
He's still going on about, sorry, my sound's cut. He's still going on about the balloon.
Well, could you ask me about the balloon? Don't ask me about the balloon.
These are the real snowflakes, aren't they? The real snowflakes. They're easily offended snowflakes. They go on about the left being triggered, not having a sense of humour, infringing on freedom of expression. Then this balloon of Trump in some nappies goes up, and look at them. They have a massive temper tantrum. It's embarrassing.
Goodness gracious me. All about a balloon. Drew Lickerman, Owen Jones, thanks very much.